name is Jutta Brendemühl. I'm the program curator at the Goethe Institut, and we were standing there just a minute ago, so I'm ecstatic to see you.
So this walk is going to be, it's not like a historic walk. There might be a couple facts now and then, but it's to experience the city on maybe a slightly different trajectory than usual, and to talk about some of the ideas around public space and equity and use and access that the geography bring up. It's very much like that little space in front of the Goethe building on University. The moment you did something that wasn't in the kind of narrow rules of what's allowed, which is like consuming or getting from A to B, if a protest were to march down there, you'd probably get hustled out pretty quickly. The only truly public spaces in the path system are the places that are over the roads or under the road. So sometimes that's where you'll see somebody asking for money is down there because the private security on both sides won't harass them. So we're just going to go up and we'll go into the park a little bit. If you have a large family and not a lot of money, you have to pay to get over to this park. I think it's like $8, maybe it's cheaper for kids. But a friend of mine, her and her husband with 3 kids, they a couple of weeks ago booked and it was $30. They had to pay it, but there's no refunds and it rained all that day. And so they wrote the $30, right? And they could handle it, but like that's a barrier to this public space. I saw this during the winter when they closed the ski hill at Earl Bales Park in North York. The city put up, private property, but it's a City of Toronto park. So this is technically, we're technically on private property owned by the corporation of the City of Toronto. But what is the corporation of the City of Toronto? It's us. It's the public. So it gets very complicated and fuzzy and legally. And it makes me think of Berlin, because Berlin and other European cities, and not just Europe, have longer traditions of squatting. But some of the ones in Berlin are quite famous, have been there for a long time. I know there's one really big one in Kreuzberg that I walked by a few times, and I was almost going to take a picture of, like, look at this, it's a squat, a real squat. And then I got yelled at. They're very kind of protective of that. What I'm going to do now is cross Queen's Quay, and watch when you cross, because you'll cross the traffic, but then the cyclists don't always stop. People often in Toronto, I think, have a very some ambivalent relationship with the waterfront, because for so long it was industrial. This is more for people who have been here a long time. People who have just moved here or newer to the city maybe don't have these hang-ups, or maybe they catch them from the longer term Torontonians, because I certainly did. That's what I was kind of given, that Toronto is separated from the lake. It was access to the lake, our waterfront is limited. But when you actually come down here, it's not. There's actually lots of public space. Sometimes we think Toronto is an artless city, but if you go to the City of Toronto's art map, which is, they just actually updated the City of Toronto's culture department and did an inventory of it, we do have a lot of public art. Some of it was commissioned like this, sort of independently. There's a lot of pieces that were commissioned because of condos. Each condo had to provide some sort of public benefit, and some of that worked its way into public art. Whether it's good or bad is up to you to decide. There's all sorts of stuff. So, when you go to a place like Berlin, it feels like art is always there in front of you, right? You can't. It's like when you think of Berlin, I can't think of. It feels like it's erupting with artists all the time, and it's just there on the street. And sometimes Toronto's is too, but somehow it's just sort of not part of the imagination. But how nice to have a group like the Goethe Institut, this kind of a group from elsewhere, so invested in Toronto, and it's kind of lovely. Because sometimes it feels like we ourselves and our institutions sometimes neglect it, and so it's good to have an outside agitator, as they would say, a benevolent outside agitator.
We'll take the same on the reverse trip to Berlin then. Thank you so much. See you soon.